Hello, welcome to American Baker in Germany. I'm Michelle, and today we are making a very masculine cake. This one is for baptism, but it could actually be for just about any occasion. It should be for a birthday or a christening or baptism or whatever it is. So let's get started.
I start out making the decorations for the cake. I roll out some white fondant. I cut out the name Daniel with some alphabet cutters I have, as well as the date of the baptism. Then I cut out 2 of every flower cutter I chose. The flowers aren't supposed to look realistic, they're just decorations. I wanted to stack the flowers on top of each other, so I cut out 2 of every flower unless I happen to have 3 of the same flowers, where I cut out 4 of the middle size. Then I set them aside. Then I rolled out some dark blue fondant and cut out the same number of flowers as I cut out of the white. 2 of everything and 4 of the middle size if there were 3 of the same flower. Finally, I stacked the flowers. I put the opposite color one size smaller on top of each flower. If you like what we do here, consider subscribing for a new cake every week, as well as regular bonus videos with recipes and tutorials. I cleaned up the edges of the words a bit to get rid of any stray bits of fondant. Finally, I stack the cake. This is 7-inch vegan chocolate cake with cream cheese frosting. I can attest that my cream cheese frosting recipe is stable enough to use under fondant without it dissolving it. This cake is more thawed than I usually use, so it got quite crumbly. I crumb coat the cake and chill it in the fridge for half an hour to allow the frosting to set up. Then I frost the cake again with more cream cheese frosting. In a cake like this, you can really tell the reason for the crumb coat. It looked much better after the second coat. Then I clean up the cake board with a damp rag. I rolled out some dark blue fondant. I didn't have a circle cutter large enough, so I laid the lid of my circle cutters onto the fondant and traced around it. Then I cleaned up the edges a bit to make it more circular. Then I laid it in the middle of the cake, cleaning up the edges to make it as even as possible. Then I rolled out a strip of white fondant. trimmed it to be straight, but it doesn't need to be perfect. Then I picked up the fondant and wrapped it around the cake. It just barely met itself. I trimmed the seam to be as straight as I could get it. I tuck in the top edge into the blue circle. Then I cut off the excess with a sharp knife. At this point, I was disappointed with how it was looking. Gaps and wrinkles. But I decided we could hide most of the mistakes with a bit of work. I rolled a little snake of white and tucked it into the gap on the top, and a little triangle of white into the gap at the seam. I straightened the fondant as best I could with a fondant smoother. I chose the front of the cake and began placing the letters, starting in the middle to center the name. Then I placed the date near the center. Finally, I placed the flowers right on top of the seam. Remember that uneven seam? No one will see it. I've heard it said there's no such thing as a mistake, just a well-covered cake. There were exactly enough flowers to hide all the imperfections. I love how this cake turned out. Daniel was touched. He really appreciated it. And I have to say, chocolate cake with cream cheese frosting tastes delicious. But this design is really simple enough that despite having flowers, it's still very masculine. Congratulations on the baptism. Visit our website for more cakes and tutorials, AmericanBakerInGermany.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe.